you're ever in that spot where you finish a project and before you start the next one, you want to do something small in between, just as a respite or change of pace? I'm at that spot. So I thought what would be kind of a fun project to walk step by step with and to document for y'all is this. This is a Henry Disston flooring saw. These were discontinued in 1914 as the next model came out. And so this is over 100 something years old. And it's in decent shape. It's missing one tooth right here, which we'll deal with. But the etch, I think, is totally gone on the saw. It's been rusted out a bit. And the handle is busted. You can see that right there. But it has all the original nuts. And I'm going to use it to make it kind of my own. So step one, we're going to deconstruct the saw, make a pattern of it for something you'll see in a little while. We have to make a new handle, and we're going to polish down the plate and resharpen and profile all the teeth and reset them. But this saw was used, the curve was used to actually cut in the middle of a floor to put in a new board or to get rid of something. And so it was useful in a trade at one point for sure. But the handle almost has a finger notch. Well, it has a finger notch, but it's almost like a Reagan back saw. So you see this. There you go. So it's got a finger notch right there. Okay, there's all the original nut and hardware, right? But this is the condition it's in now. Let's make it something amazing. All right, so the first step in this is to take apart the original hardware. And I'm going to template off of this handle, so obviously I'll save that. I have an old, bent, busted, cheap chisel that years and years ago I ground out to be a split nut driver when I first started making and restoring saws. I wouldn't recommend that for everybody, but it's what I've used and it works fantastic. All right, so the next step is really simple. I'm going to make a template of this exact shape because in the not too distant future, we're going to be using that to change the condition and image of the saw. Now, I'm also going to mark and draw in where the handle goes here. One of the things I'll do is you'll notice I'm going to hold this pencil with my hand on the table so I can move this out of the way, and that gives me my impact point for those curves that match. Okay, so that's the blade. I'm going to darken that in. Now the reason that I don't do this in the first place around the blade is that the Sharpie or anything else will get damaged on that plate versus here. So I just need this to be a little darker as an idea of where it is, because I'm going to eventually scan this plate just like that. Okay. Now I'm also going to make a simple template of this handle, even though I kind of know what I'm going to do for it as a redesign. I want to keep as much of the original in there as possible. That's a lie. I'm probably going to change it all. Okay. That won't fit. Not sponsored, but this is one of the handiest pencils. A good friend of mine gave this to me for reaching into holes. So I can do this and mark where they go. And there we go. Now, I know the original Disston had a round bottom right here, so we were really close to that form. And it came up and had a swooping kind of tail horn like that. Now that's just to give us a rough idea, because I'm probably going to change up this profile just a little bit. Maybe put a little transponding notch to match that up here, and maybe some little facets or details. But that's the basic kind of shape that we have in our handle. So now we have our templates made. We will scan them up and do some digital work before we scan the plate. Alright, so I've had this soaking in my evaporust for a while now, and you can see it coming off. My evaporust is about exhausted here, so I'm going to take this and wash it off, and then I can actually start sanding and scrubbing the rest of that oxidation off. Alright, so after an etch in the evaporust and some scrubbing and cleaning off, here's where our plate is. I've got all the rust off. It still has a lot of pitting and stuff. But I'm going to sand it down, and hopefully I can get it polished up enough to do what I'm thinking I can do with this. I also got my hands on a couple of old D8s that I'm going to do something similar to, so if you find this interesting, let me know, and we'll make one for you. But as it stands now, this crosscut saw, this crosscut saw, has no real set to it, so I'm actually able to sand this really well before I refile all the teeth. So let's get to sanding this. So this is at a dry 180 grit. The first time I did wet to keep the dust down, and also just to make it cut a little smoother. But I do have some issues already. So you can see right here, I have a tooth that's sticking up. There was some set down here near that broken tooth. I imagine that's got a little dent in it. So I'm going to flatten that tooth out and those things, and then do the other side. This has more pitting than I realized. Texturally, so we'll see how that turns out with my etching plan. But there is no, I don't know, I can't even see any remnant of an etch that would probably have been there. Maybe right here, but that's my mind kind of making it up. So we'll move forward with our grits. Now I'm just lightly tapping this to get rid of any other extra set that was on there. Not trying to harden these teeth or do any weird stuff. That's nice and flat. So here we are with our final plate. We've got it sanded up to 5,000 grit. Now there is quite a bit of pitting here and there, so the texture of this might change as I do what I'm going to do to it. But overall, I think it's a decent surface. If I was just restoring this saw in a regular way, this would last a lifetime. Looks fantastic. So let's move on to our next step.